Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Monday, July 10th. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things because I am referring to gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our morning by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I do miss things. If you have something to add to the ideas I discussed today, please chime in the comment section below. Today's daily Stoic reading, titled Love the Humble Art, begins with a quote by Marcus Aurelius. Love the humble art you have learned, and take rest in it. Pass through the remainder of your days as one who wholeheartedly entrusts all possessions to the gods, making yourself neither a tyrant nor a slave to any person. The authors write, stop by a comedy club any weekend night in New York or LA, and you're likely to find some of the world's biggest and most commercially successful comedians in there, workshopping their craft for just a handful of people. Though they make a fortune in movies or on the road, there they are, practicing the most basic form of their art. If you ask any of them, why are you doing this? Why do you still perform? The answer is usually, because I'm good at it, because I love it, because I want to get better, because I thrive on connecting with an audience, because I just can't not do it. It's not work for them to get up on stage at Caroline's or the Comedy Cellar at 1 a.m. It's invigorating. They don't have to do it. They're free, and they choose this. Whatever humble art you practice, are you making time for it? Are you loving what you do enough to make the time? Can you trust that if you put in the effort, the rest will take care of itself? Because it will. Love the craft, be a craftsman. So I've never stopped by a comedy club to chat with a famous comedian, but I'm not sure how true that actually is. So I'll go ahead and trust the authors that you can find famous comedians at tiny comedy clubs. But I do love the idea of taking rest in the humble art that you have learned. I've often struggled with a persistent feeling of being exhausted or chronic burnout. But if I ask myself, what is making me feel that way? I know it's not the humble arts that I have learned. If I were simply free to practice these humble arts of, art and design without having to worry about conflicting obligations or the pressures of financial realities, I believe that I would be a much more relaxed person. I doubt I would ever get burned out. I might feel tired at times, but I doubt I would get to the level of exhaustion that I sometimes do that makes me want to just give up and go to sleep. In case you couldn't tell, I feel like that this morning. So, as I usually do when I feel this way, I have turned to the writing of James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. According to James Clear, maintaining high energy levels and a constant state of motivation is impossible, so it's better to focus on cultivating repeatable habits via rituals and routines that will make it easier for you to do the work that you want to do. Motivation, while valuable, is unreliable, but habits are reliable. So for our learning moment today, let's look at James Clear's article about motivation. He writes, motivation is a powerful yet to get motivated, and you find yourself wrapped up in a whirlwind of excitement. Other times, it is nearly impossible to figure out how to motivate yourself, and you're trapped in a death spiral of procrastination. Scientists define motivation as your general willingness to do something. It is the set of psychological forces that compel you to take action. That's nice and all, but I think we can come up with a more useful definition of motivation. The author Steven Pressfield has a great line in his book, The War of Art, which I think gets at the core of motivation. To paraphrase Pressfield, at some point, the pain of not doing it becomes greater than the pain of doing it. In other words, at some point it's easier to change than to stay the same. It's easier to take action and feel insecure at the gym than it is to sit still and experience self-loathing on the couch. It's easier to feel awkward while making the sales call than to feel disappointed about your dwindling bank account. This, I think, is the essence of motivation. Every choice has a price, but when we are motivated, it is easier to bear the inconvenience of action than the pain of remaining the same. Usually after weeks of procrastination and in the face of impending deadline, and it becomes more painful to not do the work than to actually do it. One of the most surprising things about motivation is that it often comes after starting a new behavior, not before. We have this common misconception that motivation arrives as a result of passively consuming a motivational video or reading an inspirational book. However, active inspiration can be a far more powerful motivator. Motivation is often the result of action, not the cause of it. Getting started, even in very small ways, is a form of active inspiration that naturally produces momentum. I like to refer to this fact as the physics of productivity because this is basically Newton's first law applied to habit formation. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Once a task has begun, it is easier to continue moving forward. You don't need much motivation once you've started a behavior. Nearly all of the friction in a task is at the beginning. After you start, progress occurs more naturally. In other words, it is often easier to finish a task than it was to start it in the first place. Thus, one of the keys to getting motivated is to make it easy to start. How do some of the most prolific artists in the world motivate themselves? They don't merely set schedules, they build rituals. Twyla Tharp is widely regarded as one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the modern era. In her best-selling book, The Creative Habit, Tharp discusses the role rituals or pregame routines have played in her success. I begin each day of my life with a ritual. I wake up at 5:30 a.m., put on my workout clothes, my leg warmers, my sweatshirts, and my hat. I walk outside my Manhattan home, hail a taxi, and tell the driver to take me to the Pumping Iron Gym at 91st Street and 1st Avenue, where I work out for 2 hours. The ritual is not the stretching and the weight training I put my body through each morning at the gym. The ritual is the cab. The moment I tell the driver where to go, I have completed the ritual. It's a simple act, but doing it the same way each morning habitualizes it, makes it repeatable, easy to do. It reduces the chance that I would skip it or do it differently. It is one more item in my arsenal of routines and one less thing to think about. Many other famous creatives have rituals too. In his popular book Daily Rituals, How Artists Work, author Mason Curry notes that many of the world's greatest artists follow a consistent schedule. For example, Maya Angelou rented a local hotel room and went there to write. She arrived at 6:30 a.m., wrote until 2 p.m., and then went home to do some editing. She never slept at the hotel. The work of top creatives isn't dependent upon motivation or inspiration, but rather it follows a consistent pattern and routine. Here are some examples of how you can apply ritual and routine to get motivated. To exercise more consistently, use the same warm-up routine in the gym every time. To become more creative, follow a creative ritual before you start writing or painting or singing. To start each day stress-free, create a 5-minute morning meditation ritual. To sleep better, follow a power-down routine before bed. The power of ritual, or what I like to call a pregame routine, is that it provides a mindless way to initiate your behavior. It makes starting your habits easier, and that means following through on a consistent basis is easier. The key to any good ritual is that it removes the need to make a decision. What should I do first? When should I do this? How should I do this? Most people never get moving because they can't decide how to get started. You want starting a behavior to be easy and automatic, so you have the strength to finish it when it becomes difficult and challenging. There are 3 simple steps that you can take to build better rituals and make motivation a habit. Step 1. A good pregame routine starts by being so easy that you can't say no to it. You shouldn't need motivation to start your pregame routine. For example, my writing starts by getting a glass of water. My weightlifting routine starts by putting on my lifting shoes. These tasks are so easy, I can't say no to them. The most important part of any task is starting. If you can't get motivated in the beginning, then you'll find that motivation often comes after starting. That's why your pregame routine needs to be incredibly easy to start. Step 2. Your routine should get you moving toward the end goal. A lack of mental motivation is often linked to a lack of physical movement. Just imagine your physical state when you're feeling depressed, bored, or unmotivated. You're not moving very much. Maybe you're slumped over like a blob, slowly melting into the couch. The opposite is also true. If you're physically moving and engaged, then it's far more likely that you'll feel mentally engaged and energized. For example, it's almost impossible not to feel vibrant, awake, and energized when you're dancing. While your daily routine should be as easy as possible to start, it should gradually transition into more and more physical movement. Your mind and your motivation will follow your physical movement. It is worth noting that physical movement doesn't have to mean exercise. For example, if your goal is to write, then your routine should bring you closer to the physical act of writing. Step 3. You need to follow the same pattern every single time. The primary purpose of your pregame routine is to create a series of events that you always perform before doing a specific task. Your pregame routine tells your mind, this is what happens before I do blank. Eventually, this routine becomes so tied to your performance that by simply doing the routine, you are pulled into a mental state that is primed to perform. You don't need to know how to find motivation, you just need to start your routine. Your pregame routine is the trigger that kickstarts your habit, even if you are not motivated to do it. This is important because when you don't feel motivated, it's often too much work to figure out what you should do next. When faced with another decision, you will often decide to just quit. However, the pregame routine solves that problem because you know exactly what to do next. There's no debating or decision making. Lack of motivation doesn't matter. You just follow the pattern. Inevitably, your motivation to perform a task will dip at some point. What happens when motivation fades? I don't claim to have all the answers, but here's what I try to remind myself when I feel like giving up. First, your mind is a suggestion machine. Consider every thought you have as a suggestion, not an order. Right now, as I'm writing this, my mind is suggesting that I feel tired. It is suggesting that I give up. It is suggesting that I take an easier path. If I pause for a moment, however, I can discover new suggestions. My mind is also suggesting that I will feel very good about accomplishing this work once it is done. It is suggesting that I will respect the identity I am building when I stick to the schedule. It is suggesting that I have the ability to finish this task even when I don't feel like it. Remember, none of these suggestions are orders. They are merely options. I have the power to choose which option I follow. Number 2, discomfort is temporary. Relative to the time in your normal day or week, nearly any habit you perform is over quickly. Your workout will be finished in an hour or two. Your report will be typed to completion by tomorrow morning. Life is easier now than it has ever been. 300 years ago, if you didn't kill your own food and build your own house, you would die. Today, we whine about forgetting our iPhone charger. Maintain perspective. Your life is good and your discomfort is temporary. Step into this moment of discomfort and let it strengthen you. Number 3, you will never regret good work once it is done. Theodore Roosevelt famously said, "Far and away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at something." Sorry, let me start that again. Far and away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at something worth doing. So often it seems that we want to work easily at work worth doing. We want our work to be helpful and respected, but we do not want to struggle through our work. We want our stomachs to be flat and our arms to be strong, but we don't want to grind through another workout. We want the final result, but not the failed attempts that preceded. We want the gold, but not the grind. Anyone can want a gold medal. Few people want to train like an Olympian. And yet, despite our resistance to it, I have never found myself feeling worse after the hard work was done. There have been days when it was damn hard to start, but it was always worth finishing. Sometimes the simple act of showing up and having the courage to do the work, even in an average manner, is a victory worth celebrating. Number 4, this is life. Life is a constant balance between giving in to the ease of distraction or overcoming the pain of discipline. It is not an exaggeration to say that our lives and our identities are defined in this delicate balance. What is life, if not the sum of 100,000 daily battles and tiny decisions to either gut it out or give up? This moment, When you don't feel like doing the work, this is not a moment to be thrown away. This is not a dress rehearsal. This moment is your life as much as any other moment. Spend it in a way that will make you proud. So I know that that was quite a long article, and I have read a portion of that before on this show. If you are an avid, dedicated listener, you might have recognized that last bit, but I decided to go ahead and read it again this morning because I just think it's a great reminder. And it's one of those reminders that is really easy to forget when you are feeling tired or unmotivated. But for our feel-good moment today, I am going to read something to you that I haven't read before from a book that I have shared with you before. This is This One Wild and Precious Life by Sarah Wilson. And right now, for our feel-good moment, I want to remind you that if you are tired right now, you will have more energy again later. If you are feeling uninspired right now, you will feel inspired again later. If you're feeling discouraged, you'll feel hopeful again later. All of these states are normal, natural human states that are temporary. And when we do fall into a state of being tired, uninspired, or discouraged, the best thing that we can do for ourselves and our work is basically to keep the faith, to continue our good habits, and to trust that we will feel better again soon. So in the last chapter of This One Wild and Precious Life, Sarah Wilson writes extensively about hope, and that is what I'm going to read about to you this morning. I have been asked repeatedly, do you have hope? Hell yes, I do. But this hope I have, it's a radical kind of hope. It's not optimism. Optimism is as unhelpful as pessimism. Pessimism says, we're stuffed, so there's no point fighting. However, optimism blithely suggests that everything will turn out fine, or that some young entrepreneur will solve it, which also grants a person a hall pass from doing something. To be clear, I am not optimistic. Unlike pessimism and optimism, hope necessitates action. Rebecca Solnit writes in Hope in the Dark that hope is not a matter of estimating the odds. Hope is an active state of mind, a recognition that change is nonlinear, unpredictable, and arises from an intentional engagement. Hope is magical, a suspended state of becoming, between what is and what our souls know to be right. We don't float in hope, we actively swim toward the congruence, tugged by the current of truth. To hope is our nature. The other interesting thing about hope is that when it is attached to something we love, it's magically unstoppable. I've heard this beautiful question posed before. What if a doctor said your son or your mother had a unique type of cancer and that they could probably try a few different treatment ideas, but there was no guarantee they'd work? All in all, the odds were not great statistically. What would you do? You wouldn't ask the doctor if you could wait a bit and make your decision when the science was more conclusive or when we have better optics on whether we can afford it. You would do whatever it took. Everything. There was a graffiti poster down the road that I passed each day. The graffiti poster read, "Daddy, what did you do to fight climate change?" It should elicit the same beautiful, big, courageous answer. Everything. I mean, we've all heard those stories of what's called hysterical strength, where parents lift cars off trapped kids. This kind of crazy shit happens in emergencies. To love our way to wild miracles is also our nature. It took 3 years of going all the way down into all the climate science, economic arguments, and psychological biases, only to come all the way back up with this dead simple line I borrow from Bill McKibben. To stop global catastrophe, we must believe in humans again. Similarly, when I ask Sister Joan, my new activist nun friend, how we can best rally everyone to join the movement back to life, she said, "Tell them it's the only way to be a full human being again. Show them their real nature." In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl observed that the prisoners who survived Auschwitz were the ones who turned their focus and hope to living for something beyond themselves, in most cases to God or family. To those who based their survival efforts around themselves, their little individualistic I, perished. For me, humanity was the something beyond myself that I was now believing and living for, and would love so hard nothing would get in my way. So, for our focus moment today, I want to prompt you to feel gratitude for whatever state you are in right now. If you're feeling energetic and ready to attack the day's work, it will be easy for you to feel grateful for this state of being. But if you're feeling tired, uninspired, or discouraged right now, it might be more difficult. And that is totally understandable. But the thing is, these states of being are part of being human and part of being alive. As humans, we are part of nature, and all across nature we observe fluctuations that can echo the rise and fall of our emotional state. The tides of the ocean ebb and flow. The moon waxes and wanes. We get more sunshine and warmth in the summer, but more cold and darkness in the winter. In nature, anything that is completely stagnant or frozen in a single state is usually dead. So ironically, when your energy wanes, this is just proof that you are alive. Right now, you are partaking of this one wild and precious life. And that is something to be grateful for. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again tomorrow.